my name is Tripp. I'm from North Atlanta High School. I teach World History and AP World History, and today I'm going to show you how to use Brisk Teaching. Brisk Teaching is a Chrome application, or a Chrome extension rather, and all you need to do is go into the search for Google, and you can put in Brisk Teaching. If you want to go to the Chrome store, you can do that too, whichever works best for you. I went with the old school model and just typed in Brisk Teaching. It's the first thing that pops up for you. And if you click on this, you can see that the button right up here says Add to Chrome for free. And that's what you want to do. So you'll go to Add to Chrome for free and you'll see it pop up here. Now for me, it says Remove from Chrome because I already have it. For you, I think the button says Get. So you'll click on that and then Chrome is going to be added. Brisk Teaching is going to be added to your Chrome as an extension. Now, a side note, I'm going to pop back to the Chrome website or the Brisk Teaching website for just a minute because I want you to see that the Brisk Teaching website actually has a lot of tools to help train you on how to use Brisk. So if you don't want to come back to this video and you just want to use Brisk's resources, they have some really good ones. You can look down through here and you can see lots of Brisk in action, and there are lots of training videos and resources. So come back here. This website is still full of great resources for you, even after you've downloaded the actual extension itself. Okay, so that said, you've clicked on Get, you now have your Chrome extension, and it should be popping up here. You can see I have a lot of extensions, and I've gone ahead and pinned it. If you don't know how to pin an extension, if you click on this little puzzle piece right off to the side here, the extensions pop up and you can see that I have made it blue. I've clicked on Brisk Teaching to make sure it's pinned for me so I can use it all the time. Now that I've got Brisk pinned up here, you can see this little dark B. It is waiting for me. Now, this extension, once activated, will pop up in lots of places. I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's in Docs, Slides, in Google Forms, and also on YouTube videos. Those are my 4 favorite ways to use it. But there's one other way that you can use Brisk that I really love, and I'm going to show you that actually first. So I am doing lessons right now on World War I. So if I do a quick World War I article, if I do a quick search for that, we can see that history.com has some things. Library of Congress has some resources as well. So let's try that. I'm going to click on this resource from the Library of Congress about military technology in World War I. And you can see there's a reading that is automatically populated. And you can also see that Brisk is down here in the bottom right-hand corner. It's automatically populated in the bottom for me. So if I click on Brisk, it says, hey, this is a web page. It tells me that right away, and it says, what do you want to do? Now, for my purposes, I'm going to create something, right? Or I can change the level of the website. If I click on Change Level, what this tells me is, hey, this is already a 9th grade reading level. It goes ahead and it tells me that. This is fantastic if you've got different Lexile scores present for students in your classroom, and we all do. So you can use this to make sure that the same resource is made available to students on different Lexile levels, but you can also change the language. So my ESOL teachers out there or teachers with push-in, you can absolutely use this resource as well. As you can see, it tells you the grade level of the source. It also tells you the language. So if I want this to be in English still, but I maybe want to decrease the difficulty of this, it's a 9th grade, maybe I want to take it down to 7th grade. I want to use this for the middle school classroom. If I click on 7th grade, I can click Change Reading Level, and what happens next is a Google document automatically populates for me. This Google document is going to have at the very top the original link to the original article, so you can always go back to it, as can your students. They can see the original content. But now, this exact same article with some pictures from the original website has been put into a Google document for you at a Lexile score that's more accessible for your learners. You could also increase the difficulty if you wanted to challenge them. Now, Brisk is saying, hey, what else do you want to do? Do you want to make it shorter, make it longer, add more detail, take away some detail? Anything else you'd like to change? With this AI, it's important that you understand that it's going to do a lot of work for you, and you have to tell it if you want it to do more or less. It's all about you and the sources that you want to create for your students and your website. Now, moving down here, there's some add-ons. Translate, quiz, resource, lesson, and vocab list. So let's try out a few of these. Let's start with vocabulary list. When I click on vocabulary list, you can see that Brisk's identified this as a something else feature. I'll come back to that later. Now you can also see that it says in English. Of course, my ESOL student teachers, you are welcome to make changes here. And you can see that Brisk has automatically put in here for us a command for the AI to use, which is create a vocabulary list with definitions based on the article above. So I click Brisk It, and you can see that the document is now going to populate with a vocabulary list that has been identified for this reading. Pretty cool, right? It's identified a lot of different Tier 2 and Tier 3 vocabulary words for students. Again, I can translate it, I can do other things, but let's go back to the actual Brisk home kind of section here. And you can see that I can do so much more with this resource. I can create all of these items here. I can create a rubric, I can create a quiz, any other kind of resource or reading, an exemplar, a lesson plan, and that magic something else button, which is where you give it instructions about what else you might like a vocabulary list or a week worksheet, for example. It will also create DOK level questions for you. It can create decodable text for those of you that are working with lower grades. It can even create a presentation. Then, just as a side note, some other tasks that this can perform include writing emails for you, creating newsletters, and even letters of recommendation. A side note here, and this should go without saying with AI, but what I like to think of is the 80-20 rule. So everything that AI creates, it might do 80% of the lift for me, but I'm still responsible as the professional to go back and make sure that that 20% that I contribute to make sure this resource is of high quality and meets the needs of my learners is absolutely completed by me. So with something like a letter of recommendation, make sure that, you're using this resource and still sharing the wonderful things about your students that make them so special. So let's look back at this reading that's been created for us. This is still the article. We changed the Lexile score. We now have some vocabulary. Well, let's make a lesson plan. If I click on lesson plan, you can see that it also allows me to change the language if I want. If I say what should lesson plan cover, you can see that select standards is one of the options. If I click on select standards, you'll see that there are some resources that are Georgia specific. You can check the state, the content area, the grade level, and the strands. Now, it's not going to have everything that we want for Georgia, but check. Your standards might be included. If your standard isn't included, there is a nice workaround here. So I can say, create a lesson plan based on, and then put in your standard. In this case, let's see, World War I. That's going to be something in the ballpark of, I'm going off the top of my head, so please excuse me if I'm wrong, but if memory serves, it's standard 17 for world history. So create a lesson plan based on Georgia Standard of Excellence. It would help if I could spell excellence. SSWH 17 about World War I. All right. Now I'm going to change the grade level to 10th grade. And I can say, hey, I want this lesson to last me 50 minutes. Or maybe you've got more time on your hands. You're on a block schedule and you need it to fill 90 minutes. You adjust it to suit your needs. I click Brisk It, and you can see that a lesson plan is going to generate right here for me. This lesson plan provides me materials, objectives, and all the different stages of a gradual release lesson plan. So scrolling back to the top, objectives are created for you, a list of materials, a bell ringer activity, an introduction to the lesson, some period of direct instruction, guided practice, independent practice, and an exit ticket and closure. If you would like it to create any other resources for you, what I like to do is go back to Brisk, go to Create, click on Something Else, that magic button for us, and I want it to create the worksheets for this lesson plan. And I'm going to click Brisk again. And you can see that all of the worksheets that were suggested in the original lesson plan are now being created for me, including a vocabulary matching activity, some short questions for students to answer, and these will all match with the lesson plan that was originally designed. At any point, you can translate these resources, and you can make them longer, shorter, add detail, or take away detail. What else can we do? So if we look at Brisk, it's now generating some more for me. I'm going to stop generating. Okay. So if we go back to Brisk, we're going to go to Create, and you can see that it can create a quiz for you. So what I'm going to do is I could make the quiz over this entire sheet, but I want to limit my quiz perhaps to just the portion that I've highlighted. So I'm going to highlight the reading section here. And side note, I could do this over the original document too. I can show you how to do that too. But if I just highlight this section here, go to Brisk, go to Create, I'm going to have it make a quiz for me. I want it to be in English. I want it to cover the selected text. I want it to be on 10th grade level, multiple choice, but I can also make it short response or long response. And I can select the number of questions I want. Next, I can decide if I want it to be in a new doc or a new form. Let's see what it does with Google Forms. If I click on Brisk It, it's going to ask me which account I want to use. It's thinking. And now it's creating a brand new quiz for me in Google Forms. It's based on the reading that I had originally highlighted. And you can see that 10 multiple choice questions will populate. If Brisk doesn't feel like it can give you 10 different questions because the reading is too short, for example, it will simply say, I could not create any more questions. It won't typically duplicate things. Now, here's where the 80-20 comes in. It's created the questions for me. It's now my responsibility to go through and see if I actually like the questions that it created. You also may want to move things around. Let's say down here there was an all of the above option, but it was the second choice. You might want to move it down to option D to make it make more sense. Also, when you're looking at these resources, note that this quiz already has the key embedded, and the correct option has been pre-selected for you. I can also add on short response, long response, or more multiple choice questions. So if I add on short response, again, I'm asked here what language, and the prompt is write more short response questions for the quiz above. I can decide on grades, any standards, and how many questions. I click Brisk It, and you can see that more questions get populated, and I can simply copy and paste these into the other form. Now, oddly, I don't like these questions. These questions have nothing to do with it. This is where AI does break down a little bit. So let's instead go back to this reading and create some DOK questions. I highlight it, go to Brisk, Create, and one of the other options here is DOK questions. I can say, make some DOK questions about the highlighted text. I can set the grade level again. And in a new document, you can see that it's going to populate DOK questions that are pre-divided for me into the different DOK levels. It also gives me activity ideas that are appropriate to those DOK levels too. So I can look at these questions and decide if some of these might be the kinds of short answer questions I would like to add to the quiz that it created for me earlier. So I'm hoping that you're getting some ideas about how you want to use this resource. I want to show you a few more things. If I simply open up a blank doc, blank form, or blank Google Slides, Brisk can create things out of thin air for me too. So if I want to have this document here, it's an untitled document. Going to Brisk, I can go to Create, and I can say I want it to create a resource for me. In that resource, I can be as specific or as general as I want. So perhaps I want to create a reading for AP World History on the causes of World War I. I can also select standards here if I want to. And look, this document is going to populate with a reading that helps my students with the causes of World War I. Now, I'm going to have to take on the 20% responsibility of reading through this and seeing if I like it, but there out of thin air, a resource has been created. And let's try create from a blank document, and we'll say quiz. What should the quiz cover? You can simply put into the blank here where you're asking it to create things, the title of a resource that you already know. So my colleague in AP Lang asked, can it create a quiz for me without the text? And we said, let's find out. So create a quiz based on the reading, I Want a Wife by Judy Brady. I can again make all these choices here. I'm going to make it a new form. And you can see the questions that it has populated, talking about the purpose of the author's argument, the responsibilities of a wife, what tone does the author use, what is the author's view on gender roles, etc. My colleague said this is actually really good. And if this particular colleague approves, you know it's going to be great. I've also had colleagues in foreign language look at translation options. Did it actually provide solid translations? And they agreed that it did. And they agreed that it did. If you look at this highlighted text and we go to Brisk again and we go to create, one of the options that you can do is you can translate this resource into Spanish or any of these other languages. And here you can see that it is beginning to translate this into Spanish. Now, moving away from all these other tabs, there are so many open. Let's see what else Brisk can do for us. Brisk can also work with slides. So you can see the B in the little right-hand corner here. It's asking for some additional approvals before we move on. And you can also create slides. So here, you can add slides, and you can use this with existing slide decks that you have, or you can say, I want to create a resource. I want it to be, create a resource about this presentation, so you can add this to your existing Google Slides, or you can create Google Slides from scratch here. So play with this as well. I don't want to go into all the different details with slides. This is a recent integration, and it's really exciting. Moving then over to YouTube. We've all had times where students are watching a video in class, but their eyes are kind of glazing over or they're not paying attention. If you want students to be able to be held responsible, perhaps with a short reading or a quiz while they're watching a video, you can absolutely do that with Brisk as well. So click on a video of your choice. And what you can do with Brisk in the bottom right-hand corner is you can create. And you can create a quiz based on this YouTube video in any language you choose. So let's create it in English. Multiple choice, 10 questions. A new form, why not? Here we go. And here is this new quiz that's being populated. As you can see, all the questions are over the exact same content as the original video was. And you can use this type of resource to hold your students accountable for videos that you watch in class. With any Brisk resource, their quality is pretty good, but you do need to look over things to make sure that it actually meets your needs. Now, if you've been looking at the Give Feedback button or the Inspect Writing button, you'll know that as teachers, these are pretty powerful for us as well. So what could that look like? Well, in this case, I am going to need to open my Google Classroom briefly. So let's go to Google Classroom, and we're going to look at something that a student submitted. Better yet, let's look at something that I've created so that we're not looking at student resources. So I've got here some unit cheat sheets. Oh, those are PDFs. My apologies. Perfect. We've got this document here that was created by myself and a colleague. And you can see that we've made edits to it. Draft back, that was another resource over here, tells me that I've made revisions to this. And so we can look at this source. If we look at Inspect Writing, one of the options that Brisk gives you is Replay. Replay shows you all of the times that this document has had pasting done to it. It shows you the edits that the student or the author made in real time. And it also shows you how long the author's been working on the document. Now, let's skip ahead. Over the course of the life of this document, it was worked on for an hour and 11 minutes. Over 2,000 edits were made to it, and 15 of them were pastes. If this were student work, we would look at those pastes, we would see where they pasted things in, and we'd be able to evaluate the quality of their individual work. Now, we can also use this to detect AI writing. If you click on Detect AI Writing, Brisk tells us that that's unlikely. Now, Brisk also is going to tell us these results are imperfect, and it gives an estimation. If you would like another resource to check this, may I suggest that you check out Hive. Hive is another option that you can use to check out whether or not text has been copied, pasted, used from AI, etc. So let's reinitialize that. There the button is. Okay, great. And we can actually just copy and paste in some of this content and check the origin. And Hive lets us know it's not AI generated. So check out Hive and all of its wonderful applications if you're curious about that resource. What about giving feedback? Giving feedback is something that teachers, we often, and we should absolutely take complete responsibility for. However, there's nothing saying that AI can't help us with some grows and glows, or with rubric criteria, or even next steps for how to build up skills for students. I really love Glow and Grow. In fact, I love Glow and Grow because it allows me to be reflective myself as a teacher about what I've achieved. So if I click on this, the feedback, I can choose the language, and I can specifically focus the feedback on any particular standard, or I can upload a rubric. For my purposes, this is a resource for, 8th P, so I'm going to say it's for 12th grade, Glow and Grow, and I'm just going to ask it to give me some feedback. And you can see that Brisk approves of demonstrating a thorough approach to analyzing documents and extracting relevant information, that I've given it good attention to detail, and it's giving me some wonderful, compliments to my work. But it's also giving me some grows to enhance my analysis. What other kinds of things can I do? This is the kind of feedback that all of us can benefit from, students and teachers alike. And I really like the feedback and the way that Brisk gives me that feedback and the tone that it uses. So this is a resource for student feedback, but also keep in mind you can use this with rubrics too. Going back home to our original little extension in the corner here, you can go back to Create and you can see all the different things that Brisk can do for you. I really hope you explore Brisk. I hope it makes your life so much easier, whether it's translating a document, whether it's creating different Lexile scores for the same document in your classroom, creating a resource for your kids, an exemplar for your kids, or anything else. That something else button is really, really magical. AI can absolutely be your friend. It's not something that we've got to constantly be fighting in our classrooms with students. AI can even help you hunt down AI to help you encourage your students to do more of their own work and show you their own brilliant brains in action. I hope that Brisk makes your life a little easier and a little bit more efficient in an environment where a lot of it is asked of us. Use this tool to make your life easier and reach out if you've got questions.